Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Progressive World. Hope you're having a decent day. So we were away for a couple of weeks, almost 2 weeks, but now we're back. That was mostly my fault. It wasn't Sam's fault for once. But now we're back, and we're back with another episode of the Progressive World. So, Sam, I know that we're going to talk about Nina Turner's loss, some of the reactions in the progressive world. I've come across this study on healthcare that is nothing groundbreaking, but supports most of the points made by leftists in the US, I would say, or pro Medicare people in the US. And then what else do we have, Sam? You were going to tell me about Katie Halper a bit, some stuff from the UK. What else?
I think the big change we should tell everybody about is that from now on, one of the biggest criticisms and feedbacks we've had is that our videos are not very well structured. So we're going to try to do more structured. So we're going to do the beginning is going to be as usual, sort of try to do some recommendation of the content and comments on the online content that came out during the week. Then we're going to try to do progressive update of different countries, because that's something we've talked about a lot, that we feel that the left is too focused on their domestic issues. So we're going to try to do like US progressive world, UK progressive world this week. Hopefully we're going to do other countries. It's been a bit difficult to come up with good news stories for other countries, but we're going to add rest of the world as soon as we can. Each week it's going to be a different country, probably, because we're not going to have news from every country every week, probably. So that's going to be part of that. And then I want to talk about, I want to give a specific recommendation of something new that I came across. And we also going to talk about the political issues of each country. So I think that's going to be something new, hopefully, that people enjoy.
Brilliant. And I forgot to mention, as always, I forget to mention timestamps below. And this is like the first time that we're trying to, be a bit more structured and have these different segments. So please don't have high expectations. It's probably going to take us a few weeks to nail it down. And then in general, let's not forget that this is like the Progressive World series podcast that we do on our channel. And we hope to bring back the original kind of Spar&Brawl podcast, which will be more newsy and policy orientated, although it's also the case here. But let's just bear that in mind, that this is a specific type of series that's been doing really well on our channel so far.
I hope it's just, this is going to become sort of an update, and like at some point somebody can listen to it and say, okay, that's like what's going on in the progressive world around the world. Like,
definitely.
Okay, that's what's going on in the US, UK. That's the end final aim, I hope. But
no, I really like that angle that
from.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot the segment that we're gonna, like, we've done this before as well. What we're gonna do it as sort of, we're gonna try to cover research that has come out recently, like basically each week. That is again like connected to progressive issues or leftist issues, or whatever, to be honest, we like, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like this whole country thing.
Quentin Tarantino.
And I really like this whole country kind of thing that you want to bring to it. I mean, in this time, we're just going to talk mainly about the US and the UK, I guess. Maybe the other countries just in that healthcare study that I mentioned. But yeah, I really like that idea, every week trying to bring maybe a different country or something that's been happening that's progressive related. But okay, let's start. This is probably the longest intro we've ever done. So timestamps below, people. There are probably some topics that we forget to mention. So please check them out if you just want to skip to your favorite part. But if not, okay, Sam, get us going. You were watching a podcast with Katie Halper on the environment, I believe, that you seem to like quite a bit. So tell us, what was that all about?
Yeah, so I caught this. I mean, thankfully, she announced this earlier, and I put a reminder on this one because I really like James Cromwell. I'm sure a lot of people know him. He's a very famous actor. I don't know if he's been ever nominated for an Oscar or not, but he's one of the best. He's fantastic. I don't know if you've seen the Pig, a Baby in a Babe series. It's a pig
Oh yeah, that
where
gentleman, the
you're,
old guy from the
yes, yes,
Babe series.
he's a
Okay, yes, of
major.
course.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
true.
Okay, that's so surprising. You know him. That is just okay. Wow.
And I
Thanks.
forgot
You
he's
don't know.
also an
Like if I said
activist.
Robert Downey Jr. from,
No, okay, of course I
he's a
know.
major activist. He
Yeah,
went. He recently went to prison, with jail or prison.
true.
I'm not sure, because yeah, he was. They were protesting. I think that they were protesting the building of this gas plantation that is being built near New York and all that. It was very long, and they talked about a lot of things, and it was fascinating. And he's such a. By the way, you would love him because he's a vegan, and he
Yeah.
very much is. He was very serious about it as well. I felt disgusted by myself a bit because
I
he was like, if
think
you love animals, you don't eat them, and he was very, as a matter of fact, about it. And he plays in one of the best TV shows on TV right now. I think probably one of the best TV shows ever, if not the best TV show ever to portray power, the TV show Succession. He plays in a couple of episodes. He's an uncle role. And yeah, so that's, I think, if you like, you were away for a bit, so that's a great sort of 3 hour podcast to ease your way back into the progressive
yeah.
issues and all that. They talk about environmental issues, and along James Cromwell, there are two other guests. One of them, a very young lady. She's part of a youth organizations that's there pushing uh, pushing global institutions, and they've pushed global institutions to enforce environmental treaties that are signed by countries, for example, Russia and China. And she even before somebody even asked her, she said, we chose Russia and China because they signed those treaties. There are a lot of other countries we would want to push these international treaties on legally, but they haven't signed the treaties, or they've pulled out of it, like some. I mean, US is back in now in the Paris climate, for example. So there were a couple of inspiring people. Interesting, although it was a very, I found, cogent and realistic discussion about the environmental issues, because they did say that, if anything, the 10 years ago was the last chance we had, like Obama years was the last chance we had to actually prevent major environmental catastrophes. At this point, we are just trying to do damage control, really, because the sort of a like a huge, like climate change at a significant level is going to happen, like at a very fast rate. Climate change is always happening, but I think at this point, because of the levels of interference we've done, it's just inevitable that we're going to experience significant levels of discomfort, to say the least. So yeah, that was a great debate. I don't know if you have any questions, or should I do a couple of like
No, not really. The
takeaways
only,
I have?
yeah, please go ahead with your takeaways. The only takeaway that kind of comes to my mind right now, and I haven't listened to this, and I'm sure they're not saying that, but whenever I hear, oh, 10 years ago was the time, 10 years later, I mean, all that I just think of when it comes to environment and climate change, that better late than never. So, I mean, if things are going to happen, let's not obsessed so much. 10 years ago would have been better. If not, I'm sure I was hearing that 10 years before that was better. So I'm sure the earlier and the more
No,
dramatic
they didn't
and the
say.
more that you do is better. No, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that they said that, but it's just better
No,
late than never. This is something that's really hard to measure, just like how they were trying to put, like they were saying, oh, Trump, him coming out the climate agreement was just like the worst of the worst. I'm sure it added, but anyway, better late than never if there's going to be some changes, and the more drastic they are, the more they can help to, I guess, prevent catastrophic climate change.
sure. No, I don't want to misrepresent their ideas, by
Oh
the way,
yeah.
because I am
Mhm.
somewhat of a cynical person and all that. So definitely check out their words for themselves. And they are activists, and they seem to be spending their whole life doing that. So I would assume they actually are far more hopeful than I am. But I would say the point they were making was not that it's better 10 years ago, or it's better to do now compared to 10 years in the future. It's that the scientists were saying, they were referring to a specific tipping point that was a year, or I think the amount of CO2 and or other pollutants, like they talk about what cows actually, what you always want
Methane.
about methane. Yeah, they talk about that. So there was a tipping point that we passed. So that's definitely happening. So we can't, like, there is going to be major droughts. It's summer and it's raining every night and it's sunny every day. It's weird. Like, I mean, we're going to experience, I think I'm going to use my language very carefully, because it's a very scientific matter, and I have no expertise on this, but I do think we've passed the tipping point, that we're gonna experience major droughts and floods and major weather catastrophic level events, or whatever you want to call them. And we already are. I mean, the Arctics are on fire, which is really just, it's like something out of Game of Thrones. But I think that's what they were referring to. But always late, or even too late is better than
Yeah. No, I really
never.
need to learn more about this whole tipping point thing. I really haven't read much about it. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying for myself.
Eating breakfast. Yeah.
Not just myself. I always tell myself that I should learn more about the various tipping points that scientists believe that we'll be reaching, or that we've surpassed.
I mean, Mr. Cromwell did emphasize the fact that the Earth will continue to go on. It's just we are talking about life on Earth, and then more specifically, we are talking about human life on Earth, because bacteria will always be there. It's it's like no problem.
I mean, some animals, some plants will adapt, some will disappear.
To be honest, that's my
new ones will come.
Exactly, like that's the thing. I mean, even if you don't believe in climate change or all that, do you not see the effects of like cities on your environment? Like that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want to live in a dystopian shithole. But anyways.
100%. Or just no. I completely agree. Or I mean, emissions will have to have some effect on the planet anyway. So you just have to kind of figure out on what you think that
like when there's a car near you and sorry. You smell a thing, you feel it's I don't understand. Anyways, I just don't get it.
Complete denial is hard to believe. Even oil companies and all that now, they don't deny it. It's just they'll be like, we'll come up with our solutions.
Exactly.
But go on.
Even if you deny it, though, I don't understand. No, my point is, even if you deny it, I don't understand why you would, like, even let's say you don't believe in climate change, you believe in trashing the surrounding you, and you like to live in a dystopian Blade Runner like hellscape that's I just don't get. Anyways, that's, even if you don't believe in climate change, you like that. So, anyway. But should I go through the takeaways?
Yes, please.
Sure. I mean, there was a bit of a young generation against the old generation thing, although it was very mild, which I'm not a big fan of. That you old people are ruining everything for our future. But fair enough. There is a point to it, but I'm not a big fan. I think that's not very helpful. They discussed Planet of the Humans, and again, Mr. Cromwell pointed out that Michael Moore was treated very badly on that. Very much unfair criticism and all that, and I was very happy because I was a relative fan of the movie and all that. So I was happy that there were other people on the left that like that. Anyway, it's hard. Sometimes it's rare. That was interesting. You should watch that, by the way. Anyway,
I mean, I know I don't think I would agree with it as much as you did, but anyway, let's not bring that in because I haven't watched it, but I know what's the point of contention. But fair enough. I'm glad you found an ally, a high-profile ally.
They talk. Yes, on this specific issue, on the vegan issue, if he finds out my diet, I don't think it's gonna be. Anyway. Don't tell him about my love for steak. Anyway, they talk about a really interesting issue. They talk about how to get rid of corruption, and that's the corruption in politics and in energy sector. So to combat basically pollution, climate change, all these issues, And one of the ladies, she's from India. She heads this organization. She's the lady who initiated James Cromwell with these movement and all that. She talks about that we should nationalize gas industry, which I am somewhat, because we are from Middle East originally and all that. And in Middle East, all these industries are nationalized, but they're not at all environmentally any more environmentally responsive than private companies are in US. And in fact, it does create it does create far more potential for government to do corruption and to become independent from the people, because they have this sort of outside sort of source of revenue. So I am very skeptical on that, but I thought that was a fascinating topic that you could do a thesis on. And I'm sure a lot of people have done a thesis on, and I'm going to try to read up on that. So I don't know if you have any take on that.
Yeah, no, I very much agree there with your take that just on the, I mean, of course, burning gas, whether it's done by a publicly owned company or whether it's done by a privately owned company, it's going to emit the same emissions, right? They don't the gas won't discriminate. But I mean, yeah, so when you compare, like in the Middle East, there are these countries which are nationally owned, and it's not any better. But perhaps if you take it in a specific Western country context and you switch it from private to public, and with that you bring some other regulatory or some frameworks or some limits, it could change things. But I think on the face of it overall, without having listened to this podcast, I definitely agree with your take there. But I can also see how it could have a difference if it comes in specific context with some accompanied by other things.
What I would give them is that, like most states we talk about, although not all, I would say, are rentier states, so to speak, as in they are like they basically pay off their people. They don't collect taxes so much as they basically give. The rentier state is a term I think coined in 80s or 70s by an academic to refer to Middle Eastern states with so much excess money that they can basically buy off their people instead of sort of taxation and representation. Instead, you have the state paying off people, so they're not represented. So you could argue maybe in a different structure, but it would be interesting to look at Norway. I don't know what's the system in Norway, how, like, I think it's partially a state-owned and all that. So,
yeah,
it's an interesting debate. That's like a real, like, I think, interesting debate to be had.
100%.
But yeah, my inclination was like you too. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's the rules and regulation is the key, whether state-owned or privately. And
when it comes to environments, maybe not when it comes to, like, the
yes.
prices or equity or these kind of things.
Yes, of course. Just we're talking about energy right now and environment. And interestingly, at the end, she discussed some sort of a weird potential conspiracy theory about Cuomo. Because Chris Cuomo has been involved recently, he's been involved in a lot of scandals about the COVID death numbers and all that. But the sexual scandals recently led to an independent inquiry, which led to an independent report, which condemned him and corroborated many of those sexual allegations. And he came out with a pre-prepared video. He said he comes from an Italian background and all that. It's part of his general attitude. And then he released this weird video, by the way, of him touching he released this as a defense of him touching all these different kinds of people of the different kinds of like tribes and clans and like blacks and whites and old and young and all that as a sort of a defense, which I think, to be honest, I was very happy with, because it didn't get the reaction he wanted, and it got the reaction which I wanted, which is you have all these old people, and they are more in the developing world, I would admit, that they are very touchy and they want to touch you and they want to do deep hat. And Joe Biden and Cuomo, I think, and even if that's not sexual harassment, it is harassment. All right, so stop fucking doing it. And it's just they're very touchy and they want to kiss you, and it's just I goddamn hate it. Just respect personal space. One of the good things about COVID is these people sort of being forced back somewhat. But anyway, sorry, it's a bit of a tangent there. Uh, she discusses this conspiracy theory that Chris Cuomo is being he's been pushed out now because he's always been a bully. He's always been known to be a bit of a dick and an asshole in work, because a lot of, by the way, allegations were not sexual harassments. They were genuine bullying, like a bad boss type of thing. So she was discussing that he apparently recently allowed this sort of environmental thing to go through, and now sort of a lot of people are saying that maybe that's why now they're just sort of now they're letting him go, and there are maybe powers to be that don't want him. It had again something to do with the gas thing in New York. So that was interesting. I never heard of that conspiracy theory, so that was an interesting sort of thing to hear about. But she did mean, it wasn't like she wasn't saying these allegations are made up or anything. She was saying that they found this was the right thing to cut their relations with Como, and this was the right time to let him go. So not, I don't want to go crazy on the conspiracy theory angle, but yeah, it was a great show. So I highly recommend you watch it, and others watch it too.
It sounds really great. I wish I would have watched it ahead of time, but I was behind with everything, so I don't think I would have even done it if you had sent me the clip. But very nice. Anything else to mention there or about Katie Halper before we move on to our next story?
No, but I did want to mention that you haven't been around, and I assume you haven't been able to check your news as much. The Hill, interestingly, has taken a bit of a turn, and they've recently had days, or at least I see the news segments, that they have 2 left-wing hosts on. So I don't know if they're changing their strategy, or at least what I do think are 2 left-wing hosts, because they had Ryan Grimm and Kim Everson, if I'm not mispronouncing her name, or whatever. So I think she supported Tulsi Gabbard, so I would assume she's considered sort of left or somewhat. And then they had Kim and another lady who I think is nominally at least considered on the left. I don't know where everybody stands these days. So yeah, that's just in terms of like content in the progressive world. That's about it, really.
Nice, that makes sense. I haven't watched them in a week or two, so probably check them out to see what see what this new crew is up to, and just check their numbers too. Now it's just fun to look at the Hills numbers. Like, forget about the stories. Let me see how many views. Okay.
God, yeah, you've gone full corporate. All you care about are just.
I'm just sitting here comparing breaking points and the Hill, just their numbers. I don't know for what or for who, but.
You're doing like what basically the corporate people are doing at the Hill. The corporate bosses of the people, the hosts are doing. Yeah. You're doing it for free. You're not even getting paid.
Pretty much. Okay, let's move on to the next story. So this is a debate that I watched and I very much enjoyed. And so Briahna debated this Professor Glenn Lowry or Laurie. Professor Glenn, yeah, go ahead.
I would describe it as a discussion.
True. Discussion or debate. I mean, I guess there is a difference, but they clearly, both of them came from 2 opposite sides, really. So the main point of contention, I would say, is that Briahna has the more conventional position, I believe, that a leftist would have. I mean, this person was a conservative intellectual, so of course it's different, which is that a lot of the issues that you might point to within the African American community, or at least segments of the African American community, has a lot to do with their historical and socioeconomical past and present circumstances. Whereas he doesn't fully deny those things, but I mean, his main thing is like, that African Americans are just not behaving properly, and it's their fault that they're not taking the right decisions, they're not taking care of themselves and their families correctly, and that's why there's problem X, Y, or Z. Would you agree that that's pretty much what the argument is about? Do you think I framed it correctly? What would you like to add?
Kind of. Yes, I mean, I think you framed it correctly. I would say Briahna Greyjoy basically says race is a larger, very important factor in in the in the historical development of the United States, and the professor basically, yeah, downplays that significantly. I just wanted to say that I was shocked by how, in my view, uneducated and unsophisticated the professor came across, and how
Yeah.
educated and well read and well balanced and well thought out Briahna Greyjoy came across. I was shocked that somebody like that can be a professor at, I believe, Harvard, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I
Somebody
don't have,
who
yeah.
I think had, who was, I just couldn't believe it. He was so jingoistic in some of the
No.
things he was saying, like, just in my view, childish.
100%. I mean, it's funny. I'll actually say something about him being professor, but yeah, I thought, okay, if you consider it as a debate, okay, if you just take a debate, this was the easiest like debate discussion that Briahna had. I mean, she was like countering his points so easily. I mean, he himself kept on mentioning how he comes from, it's not very conventional or popular, his takes, but he really didn't have any numbers and figures to really support it. One part, he says that he'll do his homework better for next time. I mean, of course, he mentioned some authors and scholars that kind of argue with him. But yeah, he says that he's had this debate a bunch of times, but it's as if it was the first time. And on him being a professor, so it's actually ironic. He's a professor of economics, but this debate, he didn't touch on economics whatsoever. And he kind of referred to things that economics take for granted, like, rationalism and behavioralism, things that they don't do any research on. They've kind of borrowed from other field, and it forms the premise of, of classic economy, of classic economists. So I just found that he took those things and but yeah, it's funny. I mean, the fact that he's a professor is just absolutely irrelevant to this debate in a way.
Okay,
In a way, not fully. I mean, of course,
all
because
right,
you're
yeah,
surprised at how an academic was
I
kind of just so simple and chilled in his arguments, but it's not his background in
no.
academically.
To be honest, yeah, I thought he was a academic in social sciences. If he's a pure economist or finances, so maybe, yeah, in that sense, I shouldn't be that surprised. But I thought he was a professor in social sciences.
No, I
But yeah,
believe
I
it's
just
economy.
know, I agree that, okay, look, we don't do our homework a lot of times, and we just talk without backing, without mentioning our references a lot. We give opinions about the environment or whatever, big issues. But at least there is an underlying like, it's not some, like, it's not some idiotic thing like many people who claim their nation is the greatest nation on earth, which he basically did. He
Oh yeah,
goes
oh
on.
yeah, oh
If
yeah,
I'm
oh
not,
yeah.
I am
No, no, no.
paraphrasing. uh,
Yeah.
I am paraphrasing, so excuse me if I'm like making it sound worse than it is or whatever. But he said that yes, African Americans have been part of the experience of, they've experienced the slavery, Jim Crow, all that, but they've also slaves in America have experienced emancipation, which is a very rare thing in world history. I don't think he knows world history at all. I don't think he knows about the fact that the slavery is a completely fluid concept, changing throughout. You had the slave kings and a slave royalty in Iran, in Turkey, in Central Asia, in a lot of places. In Egypt, Mamluks, for one of the greatest Egyptian powers, were slaves. Were within 2 generations or 3 generations they became king. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about, and it's just the only thing, like, you can say, okay, because America is the most powerful nation, it's not even the best place probably to live. Like, I mean, it's a very subjective thing anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a childish. It's like talking to a, it's like talking to, yeah. That's. I mean, now that you say he's an economist professor, maybe okay. So I should have, like, that's like, yeah, fair enough. Like,
No, I'm not saying it
say
fair
maybe
enough.
stupid things about.
I was trying to
Yeah, yeah,
explain
yeah.
to you
No,
a little
no.
bit
My
why.
surprise is
Yeah.
just, Yeah, my surprise is not very justified.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I was very surprised about, because I thought at least we're gonna have, like, you had one side which was, I actually don't agree with Briahna Greyjoy that race is that important of a factor in, like, I'm more of a, I think we should have a sort of a class approach and all that. But although I understand her position completely, it's a completely fair and well argued and well backed position. But his arguments were just like, jingoistic, national, idiotic bullshit.
Man,
Like
yeah.
Key and Peele
No,
have that. They have this great sketch which is about Republican African Americans, and there's these Republican African Americans. They go to a meeting of Black Republicans, and they all dress like that. They all talk like that, and they all come and give a speech about how, guys, we're all individuals, we're all different, and every single one of us are different, and everything about us. And he just reminded me of one of those guys so much, because he was going on about individuality and choices as well. So it just reminded me of that sketch so much, that we're all Black people are all in. It's just, yeah. Anyways, it was just I thought very disappointing. Yeah,
I mean, I guess we're kind of on the same side here, so there's not much for you to be devil's advocate. I mean, I was listening to it, and I clearly went into it biased. I was clearly on Brianna's point, but I was listening carefully, and whenever I'm listening to someone who, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
So whenever I'm listening to someone who's like, doesn't have the same point of view as me, but they're good at it, there's one point where like I start feeling weird. Like I'm like, there's like a little cognitive dissonance. I'm like, oh, but this one point, and I can't move on past that one point. I try to defeat it in my head. He never had one of those moments. I was looking at the comments. Some people on Brianna, I guess they're his fans. Maybe they came there but some people agreed with it. So maybe some people here listen to it and they think we're strawmanning a bit what he's saying. But to me, he didn't present anything that convinced me whatsoever. And it's funny how you say, like, didn't do his research, and maybe we're here sometimes and we haven't done it properly. But he specializes. This is like his debate thing. He's an economist, but this is his debate thing. This is like his main thing. And he goes there to talk to Briahna, debate, whatever. And yeah, he just had nothing to kind of support anything that, I mean, he killed her easily. She killed him, sorry, easily in this debate. I mean, she didn't take one hit, one loss.
By kill, we mean in terms of like killed in terms of debating.
Yeah, I'm sure people understand.
Kill. One time, you remember?
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah, no, it was, yeah. I completely. I would say I was actually, because the debate, I believe the video started with Briahna giving an introduction, and I was kind of ready to be against Briahna, because I am I thought it's going to be one of those debates that, should we focus on the working class, or should we focus on, for example, specific minorities and all that? But then he was just like, what the hell? What is this?
Yeah.
Like, where did this come from? Like, yeah, America is good and exceptionalism, man.
Yeah, no, okay, exactly. Right. I'm sure we don't agree with everything that Briahna says, but the guy didn't just give anything there for us to remember.
Yeah, if the guy has maybe writings that is very good and well established, like I haven't Googled him either, because I was so disappointed. So maybe we are committing the same crime he did, not doing our research about it.
So, I mean, I think for the level of what we're talking about there. But in any case, let's not spend much more time here. I just have one more point here, and which is that Briahna has been doing these debates, discussions on her channel. And she's like
fantastic.
And she, unlike Vosh or the other guy, his name escapes me now, she doesn't treat these debates as a sport. She's having like debates on issues that she cares about, that she knows about to different extents. She's not an expert, but she's a political commentator. So she's having a debate for a proper reason. She's not just having a debate or trying to like got you the guest and stuff. So she does it very well. She's really doing really well with these.
That's what I meant by discussions. I feel like she does discussions and they discuss issues. And there's this program I always go on about on BBC Persia called Proctor. which is the best program I think BBC does in any language, which they bring in a couple of university professors and they basically talk about their thesis, like question or something, like this coup d'etat in Indonesia, whether, and they are both academics of very high, and I feel like, yeah, her discussions are like that. And yeah, that's, you feel genuinely, yeah, you learned something. It's kind of like, yeah, watching, Richard Wolff does the interviews with Richard Esca or
Mm-hmm.
and the other gentleman, the real news person. So it's that level or even higher because they have different academics and all that. And so it's, yeah, I think definitely I'm gonna try to, yeah, I've managed finally to subscribe to Useful Idiots.
Oh, really?
So
You
I'm gonna,
have? Okay.
yeah, next target is Bad Faith and Katie Halper.
Okay,
And yeah,
nice.
we'll
Yeah,
see.
no, Brianna's been really doing some great work. But okay,
Oh,
Sam.
and
Yeah,
if you're
go ahead.
done, I want to add Briahna also appeared on Katie Halper's live show with Sam, I want to say Waterstone, but I think Sam Waterstone is an actor. They had a great debate as well. It's behind a paywall, except the 6 minutes of it, and she was great in that. And she talked about how, I think what she was saying is specifically is that she's tired of the fact that she was saying that she's tired of the fact that everybody on the left, a lot of good people, a lot of Bernie supporters, or even like on the far left, they all just talk about the fact that we need to get back and organize, and we don't do anything. We just talk about organizing, and we need to get together and organize, unless, and we just point out very small scale examples of some in villages or some towns or some reference. And I think what she was complaining about was the lack of plan of action
Mm-hmm.
from the left. And then the other guy was saying that, yeah, well, yeah, but he was saying basically that we need to go back and organize, basically, in a way. I don't know what's your take on that, but I largely I feel Brianna Greyjoy's frustration. At the same time, I feel like the left is so completely lost that
Yeah.
what they're saying by organize is the polite way of saying we've lost everything at this point, and there is no, because I can't see any way forward, to be honest, at this point.
In the US
So
left, you
yeah,
mean
I
at
don't know.
like the
Well, I mean,
federal level?
yeah,
You
or
talk, yeah.
even like global left. Let's say
Yeah.
environmental issues. Like there is not even we don't even have a global government. So like, let alone a global opposition to the,
Yeah.
to what they're doing to the
No,
environment.
no, I
So,
agree. And it's not looking good. And I mean, I guess this segues perfectly to our next story, the Nina Turner one. But yeah,
yeah, I
it's not
thought it's a
looking
good.
good. And I agree with, I mean, I'm not sure if this is exactly what Brianna was saying, but yeah, I mean, organized, but organized for what? In 2016, if someone said this organized behind Bernie, you'll be like, okay, it's kind of clear cut what we're organizing. But I mean, but it's not
No,
easy.
she
As someone
says
who
she
I
actually.
don't organize and I don't do these things, so I'm not claiming that it's easy whatsoever, that I have the solution. But yeah, for sure, just saying organize, or do this. If you're not organizing productively, by definition, it's not very productive.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do think we over sort of academize this whole left, like right wings, not because they organize, because they have more money. Like they organize better because they have a lot more money and influence and power. And I was watching actually recently this debate on Joe Rogan. It's from a very old times about the calories versus calories type intake. And like majority of the studies show that actually, like, it doesn't matter what kind of calories you take, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like, calorie intake has correlates directly with like being obese or overweight and all that. And it's as simple as that. And I mean, I think now, I mean, maybe you should give a bit of an overview of the Nina Turner story, because I think this is an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been
Or
following
should I?
this. No, I haven't been following the election that
Oh, sure.
closely
Okay.
or her thing, but I mean, I was taking it kind of as a given that, because the left were so excited about her and Nina Turner, that she was hopefully going to win at least this Ohio Senate race. But yeah, it seems like even that wasn't very feasible. And it's not surprising in a way. I mean, the left
No,
loses
no, but
90% of the time.
that's
Yeah, you
interesting.
go,
I
go ahead.
genuinely thought you know this, but what happened was that you had her name recognition and all that in every poll. She was ahead and
Yeah,
all that. In the last couple of weeks, you
yeah,
had this what they call dark money and all that from apparently right-wing organizations that usually support Republican Party members supporting Chantal Brown. I don't know how
yeah.
to pronounce her name, who has significant, like there are serious allegations of corruptions against her. She's given contracts to her family members and boyfriends and all that. So so it was a clear example of suddenly they basically pumped money into election to push out, to bring out the voters. Specifically, they targeted Jewish communities and
Hmm.
Christian communities
Yeah,
that support Israel and all that. So they brought them out and they won the election. So it's not it's not rocket science. It's not some weird, you know what I mean? Like it's not about the
yeah.
on like ground strategy. They had like it's there is a reason why battles in history that there are fewer people on one side win are sort of they become a stuff of legends and all that
Hmm.
because they're rare, because they're
Yeah,
unlikely. And it's the same. It's like AOC. It was so surprisingly because it was rare. It's
yeah,
unlikely. No, it's
yeah.
it
But
usually
I
doesn't
mean,
happen.
I don't disagree with that, and I had heard that narrative, but you explained it very well. And of course, the other excuses that were given, they were just bullshit. Apparently, like TYT and others were like blaming like Jimmy Dore or like the new,
Oh yeah,
or yeah, like new party. But yeah, and I'm guessing this money
People's
spent on
Party.
ads and People's Party. I'm guessing this money spent on ads really made a huge difference, and probably stole the race away at the end. But yeah, the establishment is always so close. They always have like at the end, it seems like these fundamental things to rely on, easily get like the same folks out that will always come and vote for them. And yeah, I mean, the money spent isn't even that much. I have this Max Blumenthal tweet here. It says, terrible that the Jimmy Dore pack, he's making a joke now, spent 1.8 million in attack ads on Nina Turner. Glad someone is brave enough to call out the real power behind the Democratic establishment here. So he tweeted that in response to Emma from the Majority Report, who
Weekly.
said, yeah, who said that People's Party must be thrilled that Nina Turner lost. What a victory to see that McCarthy and imperialists go down, blah, blah, blah.
I,
So, I mean, he was kind of
I
joking as that. But yeah, I'm sure that big money at the end made a difference. But yeah, sometimes we think that these progressive candidates are more ahead because of the polls and all that. But at the end, it seems like when the Democratic establishment get their things together, besides the money, apparently there were also some major endorsements, like those kind of people that really swung the way towards
Clyburn
Biden. So a combination of all that, even if we can't draw a
to
perfect causality from that money spent, although it seems to be very clear because it came at the end. That and the usual stuff seems to have been enough to do the trick, I guess. And did she lose by a lot,
I
kinda? Because she admitted defeat a bit early, right?
it was I think more than 5 points. She was
Oh,
45 or
sorry, I can't hear
46,
you.
and the winner was over 50.
Oh, sorry, folks. Sorry about that. My headphones died, so just had to put these on. But yeah, was the race super close, Sam? I don't know if you have the numbers, or maybe I should have
And
looked at the
I don't
end.
have the specific numbers, but I think there was a more than five difference point. But I do think you're right, there was endorsements besides money and all that. But I think this time around, from what I saw based on the analysis I saw, the data shows that what you had was more turnout from districts that are white
Yeah.
and Christian or Jewish. What like Jim Clyburn endorsement didn't really play a role. And Jim Clyburn is somebody who credited with giving with delivering South Carolina and all that to Biden. I think the breakdown of data after that showed that in fact what you had was he didn't play that much of a role. Basically, what you had was a lower black turnout, which played a
Hmm.
crucial role. But anyways, yeah, I think, to be honest, though, it's just
They
in
add up,
most
maybe.
cases, it's, I mean, of course, like in, uh, there are always exceptions, and there are always, there are reasons in a sports we have weight classes, for example. It's just, I think this is like, I think, because, by the way, you mentioned Emma Wigland blaming Jimmy Dore left. I also saw some other leftist people blaming Nina Turner's ground game and saying she was too much like AOC and all that. I think this is all like
Yeah, everyone's a
nonsense. Just,
ground
it's the
game
money.
expert. Yeah, it
I
mostly
don't know
comes
what.
down to
No,
the
no.
money.
Yeah,
But also, for instance, were
yeah.
there
It's
other
money. It's all about the
candidates?
money.
But were there other candidates earlier on in the election?
No, this is a primary. This is a
Yes.
primary.
So there
So,
were other Democrats as
oh,
well,
I'm
right?
sure there were.
So, I mean, that's
I'm
also one
sure.
thing that's not taken in consideration when the Democratic vote is like fragmented and then the other ones drop out and then there's one Democratic
I,
establishment left. So I think just all of these
I mean,
factors and the
these type
money,
of
I completely agree with the money, but
no, but look, it's just like you have, yeah, it's like, it's one factor plays such a crucial role. Yeah, sure. But in these, like, I think the turnout was very low. For local elections, the turnout is really low. So you don't really, you don't have a
yeah.
spoiler candidate in that way that much. It's just one factor is so obviously looking you in the eye, and then people are, oh, maybe if we, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I always, yeah, it's like cosmetic changes when,
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying the money doesn't sometimes people with less money and they
sure,
make it happen.
very, very rarely, I
Even at
think.
the high level between Democrats and Republicans, it can
It's
happen.
okay, sure.
Yeah.
There is yes, there is a still social mobility. You can go from rags to riches in the USA. Still happens. It's just fucking rare. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
still,
no, for sure.
AOCs happen. It's just rare.
Yeah, yeah.
And and it just, I just think, yeah, that maybe we should focus on that issue, getting more money, like, rather than guys, ground game.
No, I
Or,
mean,
oh,
yeah.
those guys said some mean things, so that put off some other people off. So, oh, fuck
Yeah,
off.
I mean, it just seems like towards the end of the elections, Democrats really know what to do, the establishment, and money is not holding them back. So they throw that money. So kind of all these like leads that are built, they seem to be, yeah, very misleading. I mean, if she was leading by what, 35 points originally. So yeah.
She was leading by a significant margin
Yeah.
for long, like, until basically they came in. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to win from position of power, like, it was for Biden, it was much easier to win than Bernie. That's just the fact.
Yeah, 100%.
Obama made a few phone calls, people came
Yeah.
together, and they
100%.
were already sort of more coalesced, so it made sense.
But okay, let's talk about something a bit more positive. And again, you follow this a bit more closely. And would you say that this is an example of a type of protest being effective, which is that Cori Bush led the eviction moratorium rally, and she seems to have gotten a 60-day extension? How would you summarize this whole story, and what's your take?
No, that's a good point. I didn't, in our production meeting, you didn't mention you can use that as a weapon against me. But okay, it's my whole ideology and belief system. But fair enough.
But I mean, it's a special type anyway. Let's forget about that.
Sure. But, no, fair enough. No, you're right. I would say you're right. I would say, yeah, it shows leadership, especially, I think, is very important. And then you have people. That's the thing. I think the biggest problem right now we have, it's very weird. My apologies. Sorry, apologies for that. Yeah, it's just, I think what is very not unique, but happens throughout history. But we are living through one of those ages that we have a very shitty elite. It's just the level of, you never had an elite this, I think, incompetent. And like FDR was pretty much as close of aristocrat as you can get within American system, and he was a capitalist, and he was he kind of wanted dictatorial powers, and he wanted to pack the courts and all that. But he had he was smart enough to know, okay, we should have a bit of a balance. There should be a bit of a relative sort of a safety net for people and all that. But the elites right now, the globalized elites, it seems they've just gone full mad. It's so it was a yeah, but it was a what happened was that she led a protest and a riot of some kind that led to extension of the suspension of the rent payments for a lot of renters in the US. Not all of them. I think it covers about 80 to 90% of them for another 2 months to 3 months. And it was not something that Biden administration was happy about. And somebody I just want to mention, this is somebody I hate really. That's really most of the name. But Chris Silesia, who I think everybody who's ever seen on YouTube or anywhere has just despised that or loathed. Chris Silesia wrote an article saying that, yeah, Cori Bush just handed Republicans a gift in 2022. So, you know, the usual centrists are taking the usual positions that, if we go too left, people are going to abandon us and all that. And this Chris Silesia guy is just, God. Yeah,
Man,
anyway.
nothing is tired, man. You can go in a
have you
coma
seen
after
Boss
an
Baby?
election. No.
All right. There's a sort of a thug baby in Boss Baby. He's like the muscle of the group. Chris Silesia looks like that. Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
But okay, no,
Sorry.
nothing. I have nothing to add there. I was just going to say you can go into a coma between each national election and wake up and know the latest arguments, which are pretty much don't go to the left, lesser of the two evils. Now shut up and vote. Okay. All right, Sam. So let's move to another new segment that we're trying to add to the progressive world. So it's called Progressive Research Report, where we talk about different studies, research, analysis, reports that have come out, which relate to kind of progressive causes in a way. So the first one I just wanted to mention, yeah, go ahead.
I think we should disclose who picked each.
Yeah, I picked both of them this week. So this first one is a survey by Pew Report, which just came through my emails, and nothing too crazy if you ask me, although you'll see that with Sam, we're probably going to have a small disagreement here. And it pretty much looks at the preferences of left-leaning people versus right-leaning people when it comes to COVID-19 related restrictions. So they survey some adults in the US and adults in other developed countries. So really what caught my eye, and I'm flashing right now the first graph that they have, which is the main one, was kind of the difference between right and left-leaning people. So it's asking percentage who think over the course of the coronavirus outbreak, there should have been fewer restrictions on public activity. So if you ask me, it's quite clear, typically right-leaning people, conservative people, based on what I've seen anecdotally on TV or this kind of survey, they wanted in general less restrictions, whereas left-leaning people were more or less happy, or they wanted a little bit less restrictions. So the only thing that kind of caught my attention was the gap between the US, between the left and the right in the US seems to be much more than the other countries there. So Australia, Germany, Italy. But besides that, I didn't find anything too particularly noteworthy about this survey besides that. But yeah, Sam, what's your take? And yeah, what issues do you have with it and all that?
With this one, actually, my issue with this study, I think it's, again, I sometimes the way I talk make it sound like personal, like I have a problem with this study or this, but I generally think these type of studies are largely bullshit, really. I don't know how you define people who are, I don't think most people define themselves as being on ideological right or ideological left. I think most people are presented with situations in life and they have a knee-jerk reaction to them. I actually heard that say on a podcast and a thing I'm going to mention later, that most people are not spending their days obsessing over political beliefs and are they ideologically consistent or not, or are they right or left. There are different things and they have takes on them, like COVID or that or this. So I don't and just polling in general, asking people on all that, it's just, I think these type of studies are just, in my view, are even they have a negative impact because they just just like, oh, look, right wingers are they are the ones that are anti-science thing and all that. I think that's the purpose these type of studies usually play. They don't really have any scientific uh, legacy or out, like, so like it's just such an idiot. And by the way, in the study itself, for example, one case that will stand out is Greece, where
Yeah.
it's actually reversed.
Yeah.
It's the only country that is looked at that it's reversed.
Yeah.
And they talk about the Caesarea party, which is considered was the left-wing party that was in power. They're out of power now. And, a lot of left-wing people in Greece and outside of Greece, they are considered sellouts and centrist Europeans. So, there's all these problems with categorizations, with polling, with all that. And it's just, I think, I just think these things are a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, I share some of what you say, so it's not 100% accurate. But for instance, how do they determine if someone's more left-leaning or right-leaning? So they ask in the survey, do you consider yourself more left or right? Or are you a member of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? So based on this, they kind of
wait.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very problematic thing. A lot of people I talk about say that they're right-wing and capitalist, but then you specifically ask them, you support this policy, do you support that policy? Yeah. And they support a lot of governmental and state-sponsored policies. So it's just useless.
I don't think it's useless. I think that's where we have maybe a difference. And also you can see,
I think is so compromised.
I don't think it's so compromised, but doesn't the fact that there's actually such a big difference between how they see whether they think there should have been less restrictions or more between the left and the right in the US example right here, does not that itself indicate that there is some merit to this kind of to distinguishing this way, that the fact that when you distinguish it, you find such different percentages and findings for the two sides?
When I think your methodology is so problematic, no, it doesn't. You can't draw any conclusions where your methodology is completely compromised. It's like,
I don't think it's completely
compromised. But I believe in that was the thing I was taught in like first grade or something, that in science the first theory was that flies come from feces because flies would gather around feces, but then they did a lab controlled, there is a reason we try to do. I'm not an empiricist, I'm not a positivist even, to that extent, but I I sometimes feel empiricist and positivist try to grasp something that it's not you cannot grasp through data and that type of thing. And this is an example of that. I don't think when your data is so compromised, where your data collection process, for example, asking people, that's what we're going with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not 100% accurate, but okay, if I ask you, do you like cheeseburgers? If I ask you if you like cheeseburgers or not, and you say yes or no, there is some truth to that. It's not absolutely bullshit. I know, but I'm saying you get closer and closer. And in any case, if not, you have to do ways completely with surveys. But I mean, there is some merit there, and there is some accuracy there. And then you say this kind of data is completely pointless. No, I mean, if you take the results in face value, then you're like, okay, clearly if we want to promote more restrictions going forward, or just having masks more often or whatever, then it clearly seems like it's people who are typically more right-leaning. Maybe they're associated more with the Republican Party, which is stuff that people know. Just put some numbers and figures behind it. Then these are areas that you should focus on, perhaps, if you want to get the best outcome on your policy.
But
so
that is as you said, if you take their conclusions face value, if somebody comes to me and says that I've done a chemistry experiment in my basement and I came up with, it's the same in social sciences. There is, I think, the method, in my view,
but that's your example. The example that you just used is taking the worst practices of science by doing it in your basement, whereas Pew and other surveys, they try to take the best practices of what I agree.
No,
I would assume. I assume, but I mean, are there other people who do surveys that you believe in their methodology and the
I think no,
effectiveness
well, I
of
think,
their?
well,
No, I
if,
agree that it's
no,
like
no,
it's a
sure,
very
okay, you want to talk,
problematic issue.
no, yes, sure, the quality of surveys and studies are very low. I agree with you with that. And there are university studies or long-term studies that I really like and stuff. But just because we don't have good quality study, we shouldn't turn towards some shitty thing because we want to draw some conclusions to make ourselves feel better about understanding the world. Sometimes we don't understand shit. Sometimes we don't have data, so we can't draw conclusions. And there is nothing wrong with saying we don't know, or we can't say, or I think it's better to say we don't know, we can't say, than draw some conclusions from very limited and compromised data. And then that's my take of this.
Yeah, I see. But I mean, okay, I mean, anyway, I don't find it to be that wrong for it to be useless. And I wouldn't just rely on this survey or one survey to make up my mind. But I mean, I think their findings add up with a lot of other anecdotal or other evidence that you see where, like in Brazil, supporters of Bolsonaro, they're much more anti-COVID, anti-restrictions. That are people who are members or support the left-leaning party and Lula, or Biden came in and his administration is slightly more favor for restrictions than Trump. And, Trump was trying to play it the other way because he believes his base, was more anti, which is, I mean, it's not that black and white. I just don't find it to be as useless as you find it to be, really.
Sure. And maybe it would be better if they describe them as Trump supporters,
Yeah.
Bolsonaro supporters, rather than right wing and left
Yeah.
wing,
And
or
sometimes they do that.
conservative and progress. Do it very specifically. Maybe, okay, that's fair
Yeah.
enough. But I would say, okay. I would say those anecdotal thing that you say, I agree with those and stuff. I just think conducting like this is not a study even worth discussing in my view. That's why it's just these type of things in my view is clickbait for like a high-end clickbait. That's all it is. It's
Yeah. I mean,
high-end click
I would
because
definitely not go that
they're
far.
like you could view a couple of videos on YouTube, see Bolsonaro videos, and came to same level of conclusion, and it's pretty much based on same level of data in my view.
Oh, I mean,
It's
they
same
say
level of
that they went and
valid data.
survey a few thousand
Yeah,
people
asked
who are
people. Yeah,
supposed to be
good, well done.
samples. Yeah, okay, so it's different. I mean, don't minimize that. There's a difference between me watching a
Yeah,
few videos.
well, videos, you could even say those are better because you're observing without interfering. Like anyways. Anyway,
No, anyway,
I'm getting really angry at this study.
I think we're going around in
Yeah, so,
circles anyway. And
yeah,
plus,
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
a
Fair enough.
study.
Yeah.
This was a survey, which is also
Survey.
important
Sorry,
to
sorry,
take
sorry. Yeah.
into consideration. But anyway, what I found the most striking was kind of the difference between in the US, maybe others if they want to comment on that. And I guess it's not striking, but it was much less in the other European countries. Let's move on to a second study. So this, I believe, is a study. It was put out by the Commonwealth Fund. And the Commonwealth Fund was established about 100 years ago, and they really focused apparently now on healthcare studies and improving healthcare. So they compared the US healthcare system to other high-income countries. And I think the results are really not surprising. They're kind of the talking points that you hear about in the progressive circles all the time, which is that the US fares worse compared to other income countries based on X, Y, and Z indicator. And I really didn't do a deep dive into the indicators. So don't don't start grilling me on the indicators. I just read their thing. But based on these indicators, and also the fact that the US still spends more money than others. So I think unless you have any comments to add, I think the best way is just to go through those graphs together, maybe, and see if there's anything
Sure. Yeah.
interesting there.
I mean, I would say I did this. I like this. Just.
Well, I mean, this was a study.
Yeah, this was good one.
It was much better. So, I mean, the first one right away, if we're looking at the same one, Sam, it's Exhibit 2, and it's comparative healthcare system. Sorry, I should have mentioned one thing before we get into it, which is the indicators. So these are the indicators that they used and which I didn't, put under a microscope. But the indicators that they used are access to care process, administrative efficiency, equity, and healthcare outcomes. So at the bottom of the article, I put a link. They kind of expand on all of them and what they mean. Okay. So now that out of the way, so they put scores for these individually, and of course they also added them all up together. And this is not their first time doing this report.
I mean, I don't know if it's specified as an indicator, but the spending, they look at outcome relative to okay. Yeah.
True, very true. Okay, so exhibit 2, comparative healthcare system performance scores. So you can see it right there, high performing ones being high up and the lower ones being further down. So I don't know how the horizontal bar, there isn't one there. So how they distinguish between Netherlands, I think it's just a ranking kind of really. So Norway was number 1. That's why they're a bit more left to the Netherlands, I believe. But you see US all the way down there. Their good buddy Canada was trying to make them look good, also chilling down near there, you know.
Yeah. But well, not near.
Yeah,
I would say there is a significant difference. Like the difference between US and Canada is more than twice than Switzerland and Canada.
Based on this chart, exactly. So it doesn't look good for the US in the beginning. And we're kind of looking at this report from the US point of view. The second one is the GDP one. So exhibit 3, healthcare spending as a percentage of GDP. And you can see from 1980 to 2019. So I guess the US pretty much doubled their spending. Other countries also kind of doubled compared to previously how much is spent on GDP. But yeah, you can see that a percentage of their own GDP.
Trend, but
and
they are on a much lower. I mean, it's interesting that in 1980s, US seems to be pretty close to where Germany is.
Very good point.
But then, suddenly from 1981, it seems like basically when Reagan Revolution kicks in, they suddenly go up and then they stand on the same trajectory.
Extremely good point. So maybe that had to do with
still
more
Germany
insurance.
and US in 80s. They're still higher than everybody else.
But very good observation.
I would be interested to know how they're calculated. US is such a weird because of federal and a state system.
Yeah.
I wonder.
These are things that don't have answers to. People would have to dig in heavily because they also rely on OECD data at times. So then you have to go read the OECD data and you'll probably never finish. Let's look at the next one. What's there? Again, healthcare system performance compared to spending. I don't know if you can find the US. It's at the bottom right again. Just like thrown down there.
I didn't fully get that.
So I guess based on how much they spend money, how they're doing. I don't know if that helps you understand.
What is the percentage thingy?
I think that's the percentage of GDP. That's the GDP percentage. So you see, so that's the GDP percentage, and all the other countries are kind of like plugged together. And the other one, the vertical bar is their performance. So how well they did based on the indicators, and then compared to their GDP there, I guess. I mean, I don't know how to recreate such a chart.
Yeah, I didn't get the vertical thing at first. Now I get it.
Not easy. And some of these might become repetitive. So let's go to another one. Okay, so the next one is healthcare system performance scores. Affordability. US
that's less
all the way there.
I would say.
Yeah, US US was last except in like one or two of them.
But here the difference is not as the other one was crazy.
And the UK fares good, because one thing you can say about the UK is that it's a much bigger country than the other ones, except perhaps Germany and France. But bigger than Netherlands, Norway, New Zealand, Canada, maybe Australia, Switzerland. So I mean, there were some big countries in there.
Bigger than Canada. It's
population-wise, population-wise, I'm speaking. Twice the population of Canada, just in England. That's just in England. With the UK, I think it becomes over like 2.5 times almost.
Yeah, fair enough. UK is, they're famous for.
We got another one, Exhibit 6. I think it's pretty much the same. Healthcare system performance compared to spending. So again, US is down there compared to their spending. So yeah, the last one is kind of hard to read, and then they have some conclusions that we'll get into right now. So the last one, Exhibit F, cost-related access problems affect low-income populations, especially in the US. So one of the dots is kind of higher income and the other one's lower income people. So you can kind of see the difference is quite big in the US by how they're affected
I don't know.
by cost-related problems.
Oh,
it's a bit
why
hard,
are they
this
higher?
one. Because low-income people are even more worsely affected by cost-related access issues, right?
But the important thing is the difference between the 2 points, right?
I believe so. I mean, I was wary about putting this one because it's a bit hard to read, but I believe that's, yeah, that would be the main kind of takeaway I would assume you're supposed to take from it.
It's interesting. Like Europeans are very similar.
Yeah. And then, I mean,
I would be interested because you do see a bit of no, not really. I was wondering if you could do a regional or geographical thingy on it, but no.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't seem. It's a great study. I think
they just picked some
shows
high
that
income. I mean, it very much
It-
supports, right, like the typical progressive left-wing arguments made in the US that our system is not only crappy, but we pay the most.
I think it supports. No, it supports the argument to have an organized healthcare system, because with the US, it's not like, when they take people in emergency rooms, like they have to, like the money is exactly as this study shows. It's just so many loopholes and so many middlemen and bureaucrats and insurance companies and all that to they take advantage of this unorganized and unaccountable system. I think that's my view anyway. So I think it does make a case for an organized system,
for a better system, and
or at least
all the other countries
well regulated.
Yeah, and all the other countries in the study, if I saw this correctly, all of them have a national, though. They all have a national health service.
Like that's, but like from what I remember, Switzerland has like a public option.
No, Switzerland,
you can have, or Germany, like you can have insurance, but there is also the public.
No, in Switzerland. So that's it. In Switzerland, you have to have insurance, and the insurance is private,
like a car.
But every single person they manage. I mean, they're a much wealthier country, and everyone has it, but it is extremely expensive.
They regulate the prices. It's extremely expensive.
Yeah, it's extreme. I mean, it depends how you look at it, but yeah, it is extremely expensive. And some people, their jobs pay for it, but if not, you have to pay it yourself. And I guess if you really can't handle it, then of course the state comes in and gives you a lower price, or perhaps even covers it. But yeah, so Switzerland has that interest.
Kind of makes the right-wing case.
Well, I mean, they make it work. If you can make it work. But I mean, all of these things, there are little differences. For instance, people in Switzerland have guns as well, right? Anybody who goes to the army, they keep their guns, but they don't keep their bullets. And there isn't that whole mentality, and nobody comes out their house with a gun trying to protect somebody else.
Yeah, but the healthcare thing, I must say, their system is pretty much the US system, and Iranian system is very similar.
Yeah.
And that kind of shows that when you have a lot of money, really even the system doesn't matter. Like everything will work out somehow. When you have enough money to just go around. I suppose,
exactly. But I guess the UK has a public one, right? The UK one is really free at point of service. You show up there, you get whatever you need.
And it's very much a state-owned, in the fact that I believe hospitals are even, or like in the French system, private companies are subsidized by a state. In Germany, I believe it's federal, so each state is slightly different. But in UK, it's the most sort of socialist version of it.
Yeah.
Surprising.
So, and then they draw some conclusions. I'm going to go over them really quickly because they're kind of generic, and I guess you have to dive into them as a healthcare specialist to get a lot out of them. But they say for the US, so 4 features that distinguish top performing countries from the US. So they say that they provide universal health coverage, and it's actually interesting. Switzerland was quite low compared to the other countries.
I don't get, what you said doesn't, like, this whole Switzerland thing has sort of thrown me off my.
I'm not sure about that. But then they note that and remove cost barriers. And then they note that the US remains the only high income country lacking universal health insurance coverage because nearly 30 million people are uninsured and 40 million have health plans that leave them potentially underinsured. So I believe in Switzerland, there are I mean, you can't be uninsured. That's like a crime. And then I'm pretty sure, except dental, there's a small barrier to meet, but then everything else, you're all good. So as long as you have your insurance, you're pretty much covered for whatever it is. Well, here they're saying like 40
Well,
million Americans are uninsured. I mean, underinsured, sorry.
from what I understand, though, like I completely understand that I doubt there is underinsured or much uninsured people in Switzerland. But from what I understand, Obamacare was like that because you didn't have a public option in Obamacare, but you had to get a private insurer. Otherwise, you had to pay a fine or something.
But didn't
And
Obamacare extend?
that's no, Obama, yes, with Obamacare, you could also, until you were 28 or 29, you could stay with your family insurance, with your parents' insurance. But like that was like it didn't even give you the public option, which seems like the Switzerland version is just like that. It's basically like the car insurance
Yeah.
third party thing. It's the same system. Basically, it's illegal for you not to have that. But the difference between a car and health is that it's just one is a bit more vital.
I mean,
But
listen.
yeah, this Switzerland thing will throw us off. But yeah, US system.
If you manage to pull it off. But
if you
it doesn't
manage
seem...
if you manage to get your hand on a lot of money laundered from a lot of different dictators and all that, you can probably pull it off. Go private.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then they go on and they say that they invest more in primary care systems, and which means that it's the first level of contact for the population with the healthcare system. So they say in these other countries, the healthcare is divided much more, distributed much more equitably across the country. So population is everywhere have similar level of access to healthcare. Then they say that they reduce administrative burdens. So that can be done in a public or private system. And finally, they invest in social service. This is a big one, so you really have to unpack it, I guess, which is that they invest in social services, especially for children and working age adults. And of course, that reduces the kind of burden on the healthcare system.
Yeah, like preventive measures.
Yeah.
I always think like exercising for children at schools could just prevent so much instead of teaching them about math. Or anyways.
For sure. I mean, I think you can still teach them about math and also still exercise.
Another rant.
There's enough time. But yeah, so this was just a nice study. I was going to say a little study. I don't think it's a little study. They put a nice version on the website, but I'm guessing it's pretty big and extensive. So we'll put the link if anybody wants to go check it out in detail. I saw it on Democracy Now! On their Instagram page. I couldn't find it on their website. So maybe other people have already seen and heard about this. But that's it with this, Sam. I think the next segment that we have here is the UK progressive world. So we wanted to do this earlier on, but like I said, this is the first time we're coming up with all these categories. So everything's a little bit all over the place. So what's on your UK progressive world radar for this week, Sam?
Sure. So there wasn't, to be honest, that much going on in terms of UK politics, because UK politics has become a bit of a stalemate with the pretty much complete death or suspension of at least the Labour Party at the moment. But what you had what is gripping UK's political scene is largely the COVID restriction lockdown coming to an end. You had, for example, there was a lot of coverage of young men or young women dying of COVID in like complete health or good health, and I do think there's a bit of a fear mongering there. I'm all for lockdowns and all that, but at the same time, I don't think we should especially focus on like weird cases. It's like Guardians. I think bread and butter now that long COVID sufferers or some rare cases of children, especially the children one, are very rare, and I do feel like it's very wrong to scare parents about it. So you had that a lot. You also had the 10-year anniversary of the London riots. If anybody remembers, there was major
What
riots
were
in
those
London.
about? What were those about? Do you
Nobody,
remember?
like, there was no specific reason, like there was no specific incident as far as I remember. It was mostly like you had these under what you say, underserved, the poorer areas, and the people from poorer areas, because London is weirdly like, there are rich areas right next to very poor areas. It's an old city, it's not that weird. So but it's a very unplanned city, it's just organically born. So yeah, you had basically very poor people basically rioting and taking
Yeah, I mean, I
shit
remember
from
watching
shops.
that.
It had to do with austerities, if you
Okay,
ask me, but that's a
yeah,
political take.
there you
So
go. I
they
mean,
would say it had more to do with the fact that they had cultural, you had, I recall David Starsky, if I'm not mistaken, he's British historian, English historian, talking about, a black culture sort of influencing white British people and all that. So, there was that debate going on, but my take was it was austerity and people being so desperate that, you had probably there was some incident somewhere and then got out of hand.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was something, and the reason I ask you that is because when this happened, I was starting to become politicized, and I watched this on mainstream TV. And on mainstream TV, it was just like, some people just start rioting. Let's just keep on showing footage of people
These
rioting
assholes showed up
and just people
started
rioting
breaking windows
for 2 or 3 days. And they had these clips that they loved. There was this one, did you see, like, there was a Malaysian foreign student, and he kind of goes and asks for help from someone, and they're like, and like one young guy's talking to him, and the other ones are just robbing his bag, like taking stuff out of his backpack.
Jesus.
Yeah, he became very famous. You probably saw
I
it.
I,
It was from.
I
I'm
don't
pretty sure it
remember.
was from that. But yeah, there was no context ever given, and I didn't follow progressive channels. But I'm sure austerity makes sense. I'm sure there was something that kind of
I
pushed the
mean, it
riots.
was to be fair, it was very beginning of austerity and all
Mm-hmm.
that. So it couldn't have been like you had labor governments before that, but even labor governments, like New Labor was pretty
Yeah.
right wing. So you had like what you had with labor government, you had all these fundings cuts to state institutions like education, healthcare, and all that. But you had these quotas, these targets coming that they had to meet. So you had all these fiddling with all these like corridors in hospital filled with people, but in records they were like in on bed, and so you had all these problems. So I don't really remember
Yeah.
specifically what it was, but I think it was after the austerity for sure.
No, yeah, no, fair enough. It makes sense if it was in 2011. That means like almost 2 to 3 years post financial crisis. 2 years.
2 years, yeah,
Yeah,
2009, I believe. Yeah,
yeah.
Cameron.
But yeah, I
But
remember the
yeah,
TV
so
coverage. It
UK,
was
yeah,
just
they
the typical way that they cover riots. But yeah, go ahead, continue.
yeah. So yeah, that these like the COVID restrictions and Jesus, what I just said.
The riots, the 10-year riot anniversary.
Yes, the 10-year riots anniversary. These were discussed. Also, there were these reports about there were these reports in major newspapers came out, and I highly suggest check out Owen Jones channels for that on how Tory donors, like because. Well, again, this is something discussed in a podcast I'll mention in the recommendation segment. But it's just sometimes it's really cute when like American leftists talk about campaign financing, and they have to get the campaign, we have to get it clean and all that, because like UK or a lot of other countries have all these campaign financing rules, but they're constantly broken, and there are all these ways around them, and it's just like, okay, sure, yeah, it's very cute. It's very
Yeah.
cute. And yeah, it's just the stories came out showing how Tory donors, conservative donors, have influence over politicians, and I highly recommend checking out Owen Jones video on that.
Brilliant. And anything on Brexit? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but since we're talking about UK, I mean, you don't hear much about Brexit. I believe the UK, they want to again talk about the whole Ireland border, right? That's like kind of one topic of contention
I
again,
really
but
didn't
yeah,
look into it.
yeah.
There was your typical Guardian, and sadly, some of the people I like on the left dumping on, Brexit, people who voted for Brexit are shocked by the effects now, blah, that, which I don't like at all. That you had that, and then you had the news that this was such a Guardian news story, because it was just like only a Guardian, like a real Guardian fan could give a shit about this. That it was a picture of, who's that guy, the red-haired singer, very famous, very popular British singer.
Okay.
Chapo
yes. Okay. The guitarist, the gin, not yeah.
Yes.
Anyway.
The gin. Yeah.
Yeah, the ginger guy.
Ginger.
Yeah.
It's not
the red hair guy. Yeah.
Anyway, he's super famous. Yeah. And it was a picture of him, and then the news said British musicians get to travel visa free in 18 European countries, which is like, okay, like who gives a shit? You're talking about like what, 0.01% of people and all that. And it was just like, yeah, typical Guardian. So that was the last thing I heard about Brexit. But the Irish border, I'm sure there are some developments. I don't want to minimize Brexit issue. I just want to say the coverage sometimes is very trivial. And
no, so they got lucky with COVID in a way. They got lucky that it kind of.
Who got lucky?
The Johnson administration and everything that, Brexit wasn't really talked about after that. Once they struck the deal.
They got lucky in that sense, but I don't think it would have been that much of a. I genuinely don't think Brexit was not that big a deal anyway. I mean,
I don't disagree with you too much there, but let's move on. I like the name that you gave to it: progressive recommendations of the week, or just progressive recommendations.
We do that anyway. So
I know, but I'm really trying to put names now.
we are trying to do that.
I wish we had cool graphics.
They would come on to become CNN. From home.
Go find a video guy. Be like, can you recreate this CNN template for me, please? Okay, thank you. Put our videos there. But start with this Chapo Trap House one that you were going to tell me. That sounds interesting.
No, this I was thinking, because like we're gonna do new research and stuff. This is not something new. This is something new to me, and kind of a bit of an apology or admission of ignorance, because for so long I always said, especially US leftists are so domestically focused, are so nationalistically focused. And because I was seeing, the most left-wing thing I would see was TYT and Secular Talk or Jimmy Dore, that thing, or Majority Report, whatever. And I have had heard of Chapo Trap House, especially after they Reddit subreddit with the Trump got banned from Reddit, or Trump followers got banned from Reddit, and then they got also banned sort of as a balancing act, because whenever you destroy somebody from right wing, you have to destroy somebody from left wing, even if left wing is far more like not fascist or whatever. But so and then Virgil, one of the hosts on the Bad Faith podcast. Sorry, I don't know his last name. So sorry.
Neither do I.
Anyway. But I hadn't listened to their show, because it's kind of hard listening to new people and all that. But recently I listened to a bit of them, especially because the Matt's guy was a guest on, again, I don't know the family names, apologies, was a guest on a couple of other shows. So I thought, wow, this guy is really like intelligent, and Chapo Trap House is fantastic. This is like, they're fantastic. They talk about, they're well educated about other countries. They know, like, they're like just so well educated, so knowledgeable about history and all that, from French Revolution to like Mexican Civil War, whatever. And I found I don't even agree with them. I do like, I find some of their takes to be, like Briahna Joy Gray, to be way too far for me, but at least they are intelligent. They talk about real issues, and it's just so much. I like. I think I'm gonna replace a lot of the content I watch with these guys. Basically, I'm not sure if their podcast is still ongoing or if they stopped or stuff, because I've just been listening to a lot of all the stuff they have. But they at least they seem to have had it going until the Biden election. But it was, I highly recommend watching that. And it was just because I was comparing it, especially I was watching a lot of Joe Rogan and leftists on Joe Rogan, and it's just the level of lack of knowledge. Not again, it's just I don't know shit about a lot of things, right? I don't know anything about cars. I don't know anything about sports. I don't know about a lot of things because I don't like this is like I'm not a handyman. I proudly say that I will call a guy for anything that breaks down or something. But like I think each person has expertise, and these people seem to spend their professional life commenting on politics, and they seem to lack some of the basic knowledge about the state, about the institutions of their own governments, like the history of their own country. They don't know some of the most basic things, and they idolize people like FDR or whoever. And they, it's just, it was very refreshing to listen to Chapo Trap House guys. They are so realistic and fun, and they're not so, they're not cynical. They're cynical, but not in a like it's funny. It's because life is shit, and it's like the Monty Python. Always always look on the bright side of life. I don't know if you've seen that movie, by the way.
No, but I know what you're
have.
referring to.
Yeah, because one of our mutual friends turned me on to them. So anyway, but so it's just I really enjoyed them, and I just wanted to say that it wasn't that there was no leftist in the US that were. I mean, obviously that's not true, but even in the terms of content production, these guys were out there and they were doing fantastic stuff, and I was ignorant. And
no, I mean,
it's fantastic.
I'm sold, so you've done a good job. And I was just looking up their channel. Their channel is still active now, whether it's the same guys or whatnot. I mean, I just know them also because their name is cool, so I would hear it like thrown here and there, like Chapo Trap House, but but I've never watched them, so I definitely check them out as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually the name. For longest time, it just proves my ignorance again. For longest time, I associated them with the Chapo guy because I think they're named that because they started as a commentary on the Chapo, the criminal, the warlord from Mexico or somewhere.
Yeah.
Again, apologies, I don't know the details of that story either. But anyway, so for a long time I associated with that. So I thought it was something to do with it. I thought it's again one of those like podcasts about American interference in Central America and South America and how bad it is and blah, blah, blah. So I just ignored it basically for like 4 years or 5 years now.
Yeah, well, better late than never, like I said in the beginning of this podcast. But okay.
It shows you don't ignore stuff for your preconceived notions of what they might be.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't have anything for progressive recommendations for this week, but did you have another UK one you kind of hinted at, but I don't think you mentioned it, or I guess not. No other recommendations for this week, I guess. So your number one. I feel like
all my references from earlier was to Chapo Trap House.
Okay.
And they, for example, they talk about polling, I think, in a very sober, and I think they agree with me. And she, one of the hosts, again, I don't know her name. I think Jamie. I'm not sure. Again, because it's you just hear and all that. She says that this whole like campaign finance thing is just
I see. Well, we'll see if other folks who watch this video what they think of Chapo Trap House. I'll definitely check them out and watch them now a little bit, at least a few videos. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode of the Progressive World. No, I think I've reached the conclusion that your favorite progressive YouTube podcast is Katie Halper for sure. I mean, you seem to get noise.
Look, I to be honest, like in terms, I would rate Briahna Greyjoy's content higher. Or
I mean, I'm loving these recent ones, but Kate, they're so good.
Yeah. They're so good. But Katie Halper is just she's got the right balance of comedy and intellectual sort of thing that you can watch more often than others. Brianna Greyjoy, I have to take notes sometimes, or even somebody like that, maybe like people, some people are detailed or something, but some people they're more relaxed and they're off the cuff. So yeah, I definitely watch her more than others, I would think.
Yeah, okay.
She gets the best guests. She got James Cromwell.
She's like, I got Chomsky, but also 5 other people. It's like, it's just not enough.
Chomsky's here. Oh, Marlon Brando showed up. He's back from the dead. My grandmother just resurrected him.
Exactly. But okay, folks. So Sam, we're definitely going to start our other podcast again too, our news podcast. I think that's a good idea. So hopefully we'll put out another podcast that's not the progressive world sometime next week, add some structure to it as well, and just take it from there. So we're not promising anything crazy. We're just going to record in a podcast format. I would like to do that.
We're going to lean more into the analysis thing, because breaking news is not that fun.
And we've struggled with it. I think we're better off, and like that, the days can pile up and the content. Although I want to bring some fun stuff into Spar&Brawl podcast. Like for instance, or have you seen this shit video that I want to do where I show you one or two?
Have you seen this?
Have you? We'll talk about that.
For foul language.
Where I bring some weird things I've seen on Instagram. So it could be a little segment in there towards the end, just some light stuff. But yeah, we'll definitely.
If you do have you seen this shit or whatever? We have to do Crystal is the CNN guy.
Okay, no, definitely,
and I'll make you watch it.
So we should mix it up. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Okay, but folks, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and more importantly, as always, leave your comment, questions, criticisms, and anything else, and we'll make sure to get to them. But if not, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.